I'd like to now welcome Mr. V. Vaidyanathan, MD and CEO of IDFC FIRST Bank, to address the theme of the conclave.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here on behalf of IDFC FIRST Bank, to be here on this very important subject that has been given for this event called India's Golden Decade, Reform, Perform, and Transform. So thank you very much at Times Network for thinking through of such a good subject line that's quite inspirational in itself. When we think of this subject, I try to think to myself, what is really going to transform India over the next decade? Because decade is sometimes inspirational because it gives you adequate time to do what you really want to do, but sometimes looks too far and may not even give you the urgency to do it here and now. But for that, India should always remember that, post-independence between 1940s to 1990s, let me say the first 50 or 60 years, we definitely fell behind a large number of East Asian countries who sprinted far ahead in free markets and capitalism, and we were just shackled by a lot of old age ideologies like socialism, which really pegged us really very back. Now, therefore, we should know that we are behind, and therefore there's need for us to sprint very much ahead, and that should keep us on our toes all the time. Now, when you think of entrepreneurship, I think entrepreneurship is going to be the key item, the key agenda item for the next decade, and that has the power to really transform India ahead. And when we say entrepreneurship, we don't mean only the 5,000 odd companies that are there in the listed companies on the exchanges. We see them every day on television channels. We see their performances, and they're all pretty much important because they're all creating jobs. They're organized sector. And they are creating production of goods and services. They're creating supply chains, economic activity all around. They're all important. And therefore, we've got to figure out how to make the life easier and better, and how to channelize the energies, and how to bring the so-called animal spirits. We need them all. But today, I want to just share with you, a video which brings out the kind of entrepreneurship that is available in the bottom of the pyramid. And therefore, later in my speech, I'm trying the theme of this discussion to say that we need to power up entrepreneurship through reforms, both at the top of the pyramid, of course, which we have to do, and also at the bottom, if you can kindly look at this video. Thank you. Room, hall, and kitchen. So, this is installment profit நமக்கு ஆயிடும். சரி, நெக்ஸ்ட் யார் வாடகை வைப்பீங்க? நீங்க வாடகை வைப்பீங்க. உங்களுக்கு எவ்வளவு வாடகை கட்டுறீங்க? 3000. 3000க்கு லோன் போட்டு கொடுத்தங்க 3 லட்சம் வரும். 2 லட்சம் வரும். 2 லட்சம் உங்களுக்கு கையில கொடுத்தா நீங்க என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க? என்ன வீடு கிடைக்கும் அதுக்கு? வீடு கிடைக்க கஷ்டம் தான் சார். இடம் வாங்கி கட்டணும்னா கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டம். கிடைச்சிடுங்க. அந்த அமௌண்ட்டே கிடைச்சிடுங்க. வேற யார் கை தூக்குறீங்க?
ரெஸ்பான்ஸா எங்களுக்கு பண்றாங்க. லோன் வாங்க போனாலும் எங்களுக்கு லோனும் கொடுத்து அன்னதானமும் கொடுத்து எங்களை பெருமைப்படுத்துற அளவுக்கு பண்ணி அனுப்புறாங்க. அதனால எங்களுக்கு ஐடிஎஃப்சி ரொம்ப
இப்போ கொடுத்த கையில 1 லட்சம் கொடுத்தா எவ்வளவு பேர் வாங்க தெரியும்?
பையன் பிசியோதெரபி டாக்டரா இருக்கா சார். அவங்க எக்யூப்மெண்ட்ஸ் அந்த ஜாமான் அவங்களுக்கு கொடுத்தாங்க பயன்படுத்தி.
எக்யூப்மெண்ட் வாங்க அவனுக்கு பணம் வேணும். உங்களுக்கு எது பணம் வேணும்? அரிசி கடைக்கு பணம் வைக்கணும். உங்களுக்கு அரிசி கடைக்கு கை வேலை வச்சுக்கோங்க 1 லட்சத்துக்கு. உங்களுக்கு எது பணம் வேணும்? என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க? எவ்வளவு வேணும்? 1 lakh வேணும். எதுக்கு வேணும்? மளிகை சாமான். கரெக்ட்மா. சாமான் தலை சாமான் எதுக்கு 1 லட்சம் ரூபாய் வேணும்? இருக்கு புரிஞ்சு உங்களுக்கு கை கொடுக்குறீங்களா? உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு வேணும்? உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு வேணும்? வீட்டுக்காரங்க எந்த வண்டி வாங்கணும்? ஆட்டோ வாங்கணும். ஓகே. உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு வேணும்? உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு வேணும்? கார் வாங்கணும். சரி. ஆனா 1 லட்சத்துல கார் வராது. நீங்க எவ்வளவு போடுவீங்க? 150 நீங்க வச்சிருக்கீங்க. நான் 1 லட்சம் கொடுத்தேன். புதுசாவே எடுத்துருவோம் சார். சாதாரணமா மிடில் கிளாஸ் 1 லட்சம் கொடுத்தேன். அது இன்ஸ்டால்மென்ட் 3500 ரூபாய் வரும். கட்டிடலாம் சார். கட்டிடலாம். பிசினஸ் லோன் உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு வேணும்? பிசினஸ் லோன்? டைலரிங் கடை. எதுக்கு டைலரிங் கடைக்கு? எவ்வளவு எம்ப்ராய்டரி மிஷின்? அது ஓகே, உங்களுக்கு எதுக்கு வேணும்?
மளிகை கடை சார்.
மளிகை கடை எவ்வளோ? அதுக்கு மளிகை கடை என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க? அதுக்குள்ள ஆல்ரெடி உங்களுக்கு மளிகை கடை இருக்கா? அதுக்கு அதுக்கு ஒரு லட்சம் என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க?
நாங்கள் வந்து இப்போ வந்து ஒரு 10 கிலோ அப்படி வாங்கி சேல்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம்.
இல்லைம்மா,
10 கிலோ அப்படி வாங்கி சேல்ஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். நீங்கள் 1 lakh லோன் போட்டு கொடுத்தீங்கன்னா சிப்பமாக இறக்கிடுவோம், இல்லை மூட்டையாக இறக்கிடுவோம்.
ஆனால் மாதம் மாதம் ஒரு 4000 ரூபாய் கட்ட முடியும்?
கண்டிப்பாக முடியும் சார்.
கண்டிப்பாக முடியும். உங்கள் ஃபேமிலியில் யார் இருக்காங்க?
நான், ஹஸ்பண்ட், பேபி.
ஹஸ்பண்ட் என்ன பண்ணுறாங்க?
அவங்க 2 பேர் சேர்ந்து தான் மளிகை
மளிகை கடை பண்ணுறீங்க. நீங்கள் என்ன பண்ணுவீங்க? 1 லட்சம் வச்சு கொஞ்சம் நீங்கள்
சத்தமா
கொஞ்சம் குரலே உங்களுக்கு
எல்லாம் சவுண்டா பேசுங்க.
ஹஸ்பண்ட்க்கு ஓன் பிசினஸ்க்காக அந்த திங்ஸ் எல்லாம் வாங்குறதுக்காக அவர் வந்து கார்பெண்டரா இருக்காரு. இப்போ வந்து ஒர்க்கரா தான் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. ஸோ சொந்தமா ஓனா எடுத்து பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு வுட் பாலிஷ் பண்றாரு. கான்ட்ராக்ட் கீழே வேலை செய்யறாரு. ஸோ அதை நாங்கள் சொந்தமாக
வேற யார் கை தூக்குறீங்க? நெக்ஸ்ட்
ரீவெண்டிங் வச்சிருக்கோம் சார். எலக்ட்ரிஷியன் கடை வச்சிருக்கோம். ரீவெண்டிங் ஃபேன், மோட்டர், காயில் பெட்டர்.
இந்த காயில் வச்சு சரி.
சிம்னி கேஸ் அடுப்பு சிம்னி போடுறோம். அதெல்லாம் எங்களுக்கு சேல்ஸ் பண்ணுறோம். நான் காயிலெலாம் கேட்குறேன்.
கரெக்ட்மா. லோன் வச்சு என்ன பண்ணுவீங்கன்னு கேட்குறேன்.
மிஷின் வாங்குவோம். ஒரு மிஷினே 60,000 70,000 ட்ரில் மிஷின் வாங்குவோம்.
சரி, இன்னொரு கொஸ்டின் கேட்க போகிறேன். உங்கள் ஃபேமிலியில் வேற யாருக்காவது, எல்லா குரூப்லையும் யாருக்காவது, I just hope you could see the subscripts at the bottom because obviously you won't get the language. But if you see, isn't it amazing that there's a group of about 30 people, all micro entrepreneurs, all wanting to do business. They are not asking for doles. And it is surprising, at least surprising to me, that you ask 30 people, at least 25 of them putting up their hands to borrow 1 lakh rupees. And what are they asking it for? Someone wants to buy a kirana shop. Someone already has a kirana shop, wants to buy one more kirana shop. I ask her why. She says, if I put them together, I'm currently buying in lots of, 10 kg. I can buy in larger lots. I can get better discounts. Someone else says, my husband wants to buy an auto rickshaw. Someone else says, I'm in the business of coils. The last lady who spoke out there. And business of, I'm doing motor winding business and I will repair Someone says, I want to buy a bus. Why do you want a school bus or a van? So that I can ferry children to school and back. Just think, among 30 ladies out there, 20 of them want to do business and they want to borrow 1 lakh from you. Now multiply this across the country and how many millions of people are waiting to borrow 1 lakh rupees from you. And if you fire up all of those entrepreneurs across the country, how much we can do? We've been spending 50,000 crores of losses on on our airlines business for the last 10 years, 50,000 crores. On some telecom companies, we've been wasting, I don't know how many thousand crores. Maybe 30, 40,000 crores. Now, for that amount of money, you give them 50,000 rupees, forget 50,000 crores. And they're willing to fire up a business out there and they'll employ 1 or 2 people each. We do financing like this for goats, cattle, cows, and people who do milk and all, business and all that stuff. Some other day I'll show you that video. And by the way, this is a 1-hour interaction. I showed you just 3 minutes of that. And in that 1 hour, we explored so much about their lives. And what they need and what they have and what children. And, by the way, we went to some of their houses. The parents, who are probably till 70, 75 years old, are also doing some activity till the last day of their lives to earn. That's the kind of entrepreneurship that is existing in these ecosystems. Now, we, as a nation, will, during this 2020 to 2030 that we're putting together for ourselves, will need to fire up this part of the ecosystem. It's very, very, very important for us. If we don't do this, we will keep giving money to the top of the pyramid and hope that they will produce activity, and they will, by the way, and we hope that it will keep trickling down. But trickling down is trickling down. It trickles very, very slowly. We will need very direct intervention bottom of the pyramid, and we have to cut out all the waste of thousands of crores that is getting wasted every year in many of these enterprises. Now, when you think of the classical factors of production, because GDP is production. So factors of production, these are the classical ones, right? Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. In India, land is expensive. You can try. Land in Mumbai is no lesser than land in New York. Land is expensive, labor is not expensive, but we have tied it up with so much of red tape and well-intentioned policies which have actually backfired in growth of the labor market. And that's tied up in its own tape. Capital, which is plant and machinery as well as financial capital, that's also expensive because of inflation. If land, labor, capital is expensive, then, but still, amazing thing is the entrepreneurship is firing in this country out of the four factors of production. So therefore, the big way for India to progress going forward is to fire up these three and work on reforms on land, labor, and capital in a very big way. Now, if you go to work on these, in the new ecosystem, it's not land, labor, capital. In the new ecosystem, as all of us know, you could be working in India and working for a, Facebook or a Google or Amazon, and therefore even visas will become irrelevant in the years to come. So therefore, that ecosystem with a new definition of the factors of production will all have to get fired up for a new reformist economy to come alive. I want to just tell you the impact of GDP and how it will affect our lives even going forward. Not that you don't know, but I will just put it in context for you. In 2000, year 2000, in the turn of the century, our budget spends was 2.9 lakh crores. In 2010, just 10 years later, the budget spent by the government of India was 10 lakh crores. In 2020, budget spent by the government of India in the annual budget was 27 lakh crores. Now think about it. Population between 2010 to 2020 has grown by about 11-12%. But the amount of budget allocation by the government in spends has gone up by 170%. What does that mean? That incrementally every year, you're able to spend much more money. Now, spending also, this government is doing very differently than the past welfare economics, and it's very important. Now, if I'm the government of India, I have 7 lakh crores. I could, of course, make all the poor people happy by saying, you take money, you do farm waiver. But no, this government is saying, I'll build roads, I'll build bridges, I will do infrastructure. They want to invest 100 lakh crores in infrastructure. By the way, that also is going to the poor person. You might ask how? Because some contractor has been employed for putting this road. That contractor has employees. That employee is getting paid. And that employee, in turn, is probably going and buying some biscuits or something from these very people. And therefore, the money reaching the system is still the same, but at least you have a road to show. And that road is going to fire up production and fire up productivity in the time to come. So therefore, the current government's the method of spending the money by using it for creating infrastructure and letting it flow through the ecosystem to reach these people's hands and fire up their own entrepreneurship, which if we can fire by giving more impetus at the bottom of the pyramid, it is by itself a very productive cycle. Government gets taxes. Government should, this government, again, I have found something very interesting, that they're saying we don't want to be in business where we don't have to. Now, it's a very important statement. No one has said that so boldly. Look at this privatization agenda that came in this budget. I thought it was the most reformist statement ever made to say, look, we will privatize 2 state-owned banks. Who has ever said that? It takes unbelievable political courage in this country to do that. Look at the way we said the farm reform. Imagine you're going to affect maybe 600 million people. All for the positive. Maybe, there are protests going on by some maybe ill-informed or misadvised people. But look at the reform. Reform is you produce it anywhere and you can supply it anywhere, you can sell it anywhere in the country. I mean, today you're holden to one particular mandi, you can sell it anywhere. Now, it's the most ultimate reform. So therefore, and these are agriculture, where any miscommunication can completely disturb people's minds. So the role of the government has now switched over, which is a landmark moment from the country, is to say private sector will fire up the economies, we will do reform, and that is what really the government has to do. And it's a pace that is really unbelievable, because every day matters. I told you we're maybe 30 or 40 years behind in the way we had a slow start after independence. The other thing that we hear the government says that creating wealth is good. If we don't have wealth, we can't distribute to the poor. Basically the model is you make the money, you pay your taxes, and with those taxes we will do welfare activity, and you have your role, I have my role, and my job is to facilitate. I think to fundamentally understand this role, say it clearly, internalize it, tell all the bureaucrats of this bank, of the government to say this is the way we're going to work, I think it's a very bold thing. And I don't think any government has said it so directly, so bold before. And I think that fundamental shift is the reason we can feel very, very positive about the country going forward. Now, we also talk of ease of doing business. We also talk of micro reforms. You know, we are all talking about macro reforms of land, labor, capital, and farm and all that. But and GST was a mega reform because so many lobbies were talking about the fact this is not the time. Can we wait for 1 more month? Can we wait for 3 more months? Frankly, if you had missed that window, God knows whether GST would ever been passed at all or not. It took an entrepreneurial government to come and say, look, I'm doing it. This is the deadline. We're launching it, and then we'll figure out how this goes and fix the problems along the way. So therefore, these are the things that are making us feel very positive, that there's a government that is really firm, strong, majority, reformist, right-wing thinking, free markets. There is only one big clause we should worry, every government should be very careful about, is to say that we are not going to create monopolies and we are not going to create cronies. And if we avoid that part of the process, which I'm sure our government is very conscious about, then we are all set for a mega bull run in the years to come. I didn't mean from the stock market, but bull run from the point of view of their lives, which is really not the stock market lives. Now, I also want to then point out to you apart from the macro reforms that the government has done, from the RBI point of view, the way they reacted in the pandemic was really unbelievable. And TLTRO1, targeted LTRO2, restructuring proposal, OMO, Operation Twist, CRR reduction, LCR reduction, marginal standing facility increased. All those bullets kept firing one after the other at the problem. And I think they were happening in very quick succession. From the government point of view, when this pandemic was going on and they were giving out, the kind of benefits that they were giving to the poor, at the same time, agri reform, at the same time, mineral reform, at the same time, let me say, all the other reforms we talked about. So it just gives us confidence that if this kind of momentum sustains for 2, 3, 5 years, the power of compounding, you really can't imagine where that will take you. I come from the banking system, to close my note, and therefore, from the banking system point of view, let me tell you some numbers, and that will quite surprise you. In 2010, the entire credit market of the Indian banking system was only 28 lakh crores. 28 lakh crores. Today, the credit outstanding of the Indian banking system is 110 lakh crores, or thereabouts. That is 2020. In 10 years, it's gone up by about 3 times. When you think of the deposit market was about 35 lakh crores in 2010. Today, the deposit market in India is about 140 lakh crores. That's again 3x. If you see the mutual fund market in 2010 was about 7 lakh crores. Today, mutual fund market is about 31 lakh crores. That's about 4.5x. If you think of the insurance industry, it lost its way for the first 5 years of this decade, but last 5 years they've been compounding at 15% per annum. So therefore, if you see any market, last 10 years has multiplied by 3x. 3x. While the growth has grown by, population has grown by about maybe 10% or 12%. So you can see the incremental value addition to the people that is happening. And in this 10 years, mind you, for the first 4 years, we saw high interest rates, high inflation of 8-10%. In 2014, we saw elections. In 2016, we saw reform of demonetization. In 2017, we saw GST, which changed a lot of things for small entrepreneurs, which was a disruption. Then in 2020, we saw COVID. After so many problems, it multiplied 3 times. And therefore, it gives us the confidence that if there's any more roadblocks coming along the way, if we do reforms and if we keep powering ahead, we can again multiply 3 times. What is today a 110 lakh crore market can become 330 lakh crore market. And you do this maths for home loans market, car loan market, commercial loan market, everything the story holds. So therefore, when we say that India's GDP today is, say, $2.8 trillion, after what it came down last year, if you compound it by 15% next year, maybe 12% by popular consensus and 3%, 4% inflation, that's 15%. And every year after that, if you compound it by 11%, which is 8% real, 5% inflation, and minus 2% for inflation for the rupee depreciation, you will find that still this $3 trillion will compound to $8 trillion by 2030. $8 trillion. 60% of this consumption. So you add about about $5 trillion will be consumption. And $5 trillion, can you imagine the power of $5 trillion consumption coming? So like 2030 could look like crazily different than what it is today. And every year the government from that time can bring more people out of poverty because tax collection will be again maybe 3 times what it is today. And maybe budget spend instead of being 30 lakh crores are probably 100 lakh crores. And can you imagine what it can do to the nation? Now, I read a report this morning in one of the newspapers, Business Standard, which talked about the fact that, they published Bank of America's research report. In the Bank of America's research report, they said that India has overtaken Russia in GDP in 2014, Brazil in 2015, France in 2018, UK in 2019, Germany, Japan is ahead of India, and they predict it will happen in 2028 and 2030. And therefore, by 2030, India will definitely be India's world's 3rd largest nation. My wish is that it's very simple, that we need to fire up entrepreneurship. We saw that at the bottom of the pyramid. By the way, they're all well-paying people. Their NPAs are hardly anything. It's better than the large corporates and all who have probably defaulted, taken away 15, 18% NPA. These people are running at practically 1 or 2% NPA. So you might as well give them money, and you're better off, firing that entrepreneurship. So the point is that we need to do macro reforms. We need to support this ecosystem in a direct intervention way. And together, when we say a golden decade, it can be a golden decade for all, and particularly this segment of population, which needs faster firing up. I just hope the children of these ladies we saw today are not again hoping and wishing to do welding activity and tailoring and embroidery and auto rickshaw. If we really fire up that ecosystem in an interventionist way, not a money way, giving them education, skills, training, that kind of stuff, they could be talking of AI, ML, they could be talking of software codes, they could be talking of AR, VR, virtual recognition, and so on and so forth. They can talk really bigger things, and that is really value add, because the multiplier effect of wealth by doing value-added jobs in the lower end of the ecosystem will be really multiple for the economy, and that's what we should be aspiring for. I do hope, with the kind of approach this government has towards supporting the lower end of the ecosystem, I do hope we get there. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks a lot.